development. Now we move to is Maggie from Vancouver, and she's based in WWF and working on very important, and I think everybody likes the seafood. So she's working on this sustainable seafood project. So you have the floor, Maggie.
Thank you very much, Professor. 各位嘉宾、各位观众，大家好. It's my pleasure to be with you today for this event. I am honored to be invited by the organizers, whom I thank for putting together such a meaningful event for important dialogues that must be had for times like these. I'm Maggie Lee. I work for the environment, but I have spent a longer time working in the business sector, creating products for the fast-moving consumer goods industry. And I'm hoping to speak with you today about how it is a now or never situation when it comes to building a sustainable Earth for ourselves, for our future, and for everything that deserves a life. First, I would like to acknowledge the land I'm situating in. I am calling in from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the coastal Salish, Musqueam, and Squamish nations of Canada. So first, in my presentation, I would like to tell you a story. As the name suggests, it's not a very happy story. Some of you may know about the tragedy of the commons. Let's imagine that we're looking at a lake where there are 10 fishers fishing from the lake to feed their families for many, many years. Each fisher has traditionally fished 3 fish out of the lake per day, and it was already enough to feed this person's family. Now, one day, one fisher suddenly thought, why don't I use a net to catch fish? Maybe I can have more than 3 fish per day and sell some of the excess and make money. So that fisher did, and he took 6 fish that day. Another fisher saw this and realized he could do the same too. Soon, every fisher was catching much more than they needed because it was profitable. After a while, the fishers were getting richer and richer. They could afford more things that they did not previously need. But one day, they realized there was a problem. The fish they catch are smaller and smaller. It is because, as you may have already known, that the fish population of the lake could not reproduce as fast as they were being caught. Now, you may know that for common resources like fish in the lake, if we don't take good care of these common resources, they may get exploited, and eventually it will be a very bad scenario for all of us who depend on it. This is a microcosm of our planet right now. The story actually is applicable to all of us. We're using more resources than nature can sustainably provide. Today, we use the resources of 1.7 planets to meet our needs every single year. This overconsumption comes at a cost to nature. If we do not change the way we produce and consume, how are we able to support a growing world population? For 50 years, we've been doing that nonstop. One day, our planet will be completely consumed by us. So we all need food to survive, and farmers have very important jobs of growing food for everyone on the planet. But the expansion of agriculture is the reason why we're cutting down rainforests and converting grassland to farmland. As Professor has just mentioned that the production of energy is actually the biggest greenhouse gas production source in the world. What do you think is number 2? Of course, it is something that's very pertinent to all our stomachs. It is to grow food. How and where we produce it is actually one of the greatest threats to life on Earth. You may have heard that the Amazon is now being cleared to actually grow more crops, not just for us, but also for the animals that are eating the crops. And we end up eating some of those animals. So of course, agriculture is the second largest emitter of greenhouse gases. What are the greenhouse gases? And you may already have known that. Jerry has done a very good job telling us about the perils of greenhouse gases that come from energy creation. So what is actually potentially bad? Because agriculture is actually what helps us, right? It produces food. These are very laborious and diligent farmers that are creating the food for us. In fact, they are actually just really doing their job. They're meeting our ever-growing demands. Agriculture claims 70% of all the fresh water used by people globally. So agriculture actually uses a lot more water than you think, because quite a lot of times we use this water to grow food, and we feed this food to the animals that we're trying to grow as well. So that actually is a major consumption and magnification of the usage of water. And we don't have very much fresh water. At the same time, if we look at all that we're combining, that we have eaten in the past 40 years, we've been producing more food than the entire planet has produced in the past 8,000 years for us. That is a very significant portion of food that has been provided for us in our lifetimes. And much worse is that food waste, on the other hand, is what I call the most stupid of environmental problems. I say most environmental problems are stupid, but food waste is perhaps the most stupid one of all, especially when it is wasted because of overconsumption habits. Some food waste exists in the production parts of the value chain, which is less preventable due to storage technologies and logistical barriers. Harvested crops may go bad because of the lack of refrigeration and storage facilities to keep out insects. While those are more difficult problems to tackle, food wasted from the consumer side of the value chain, from our side of the value chain, is much easier to prevent. Logistical consumption and emission of greenhouse gases are also significantly more than at the harvest stage. So when food is wasted when it reaches the destination geography, it is much worse for the environment. So consider thinking about actually not ordering as much and never buy more than what you need. In fact, if we consider all the food wastage in the world as one single greenhouse gas emitting imaginary country, so this is not really a country, but let's say if it really was a country, it ranks only after China and the United States as the third most greenhouse gas emitting country in the world. Did you actually think about that? We always think about our cars or airplanes when we think about greenhouse gas production. But food waste, in fact, creates a lot more than you think. So next time when you actually throw away meat, remember that that cow or that pig has actually taken a lot of crops in its lifetime. And those crops take a lot of gas and also water to produce. There's a lot of fertilizer, there's a lot of soil that's being transported using fossil fuels. So that is also why food waste is actually the most stupid of all environmental problems. Now let's talk about a problem that is very relevant to my current and past work, plastics. As we all know in Taiwan, plastics is now a very serious problem across the world, carried by the bodies of water, especially by the ocean where everything ends up. Plastics, aside from being eaten by marine organisms, as we all know by now, also poses other threats for our environment. Plastics are made from petrochemicals, and the production of plastics also contribute to greenhouse gas emission, which causes climate change. We know that 99% of the creation of any type of plastic causes climate change one way or another. And we know that every single year, 1 million seabirds die every year from choking or consumption of plastics. And we, in fact, are also eating, drinking, and breathing plastics. And so WWF, the organization that I work for, has actually done a very holistic research on plastic consumption of us humans. We actually found out that every single week, we eat around 1 credit card's worth of plastics. If you look at a credit card, that's how much plastics you're potentially consuming every week as an average human being. It is a very scary problem. Now on to another subject that I currently work on, as Professor mentioned, seafood. 29% of global fish stocks are overexploited, meaning that they're actually reaching a dangerous stage. We know that these fish populations are declining, and 61% of these fish stocks are fully exploited, meaning that they will not come back. 4% of bluefin tuna, if you remember from sushi, we have this excellent high-end, high-grade sushi. They're left compared to unfished levels at 4%. So that means that there's only 4% to what it was before. And 49% drop in ocean biodiversity was measured by WWF since the 1970s, meaning that there's actually about half of the biodiversity or the different types of species in our seascapes at this point compared with the 1970s when we first had this data. 50% of the world's corals, if you remember how beautiful corals are, especially on the east side of the Taiwan island, we all know that how beautiful they are and how they are supportive of the ecosystems in the oceans, but 50% of them have now gone. And also is that the deforestation rate of mangroves, 红树林, is about 3 to 5 times that of forests because of how seascapes and landscapes have deteriorated around mangroves. When we look at the people factor for seafood, we know that 120 million people depend on thriving oceans for their livelihoods, just in this coral triangle, which is actually the part of the geography that's highlighted on the upper left corner here. So now we're here to face the consequences. Today, we know that about 60% of decline in biodiversity and 26% of the species are threatened with extinction, meaning that we are actually left with a 40% decline, 40% of biodiversity from when we first measured biodiversity. And that isn't a very long time ago. That is within about 80 years' time. About 90% of the oceans are fished to or beyond their limits, meaning that they're not able to recover. Remember that story I told you earlier about the tragedy of the commons? That means that even if the fishers stopped now, it may already be too late. That fish population may never bounce back. This is a very sad presentation till now. But I would also want to turn your attention to these 17 very colorful diagrams. The United Nations has announced 17 different Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, 6 years ago. If you've watched the Tokyo Olympics recently in these 2 months, the host country of Japan has also mentioned these SDGs profusely. And the SDGs are very much referred to in my previous employer, the United Nations Environment Program. These goals define what and how we should do for sustainable development. Out of these, 4 SDGs, such as 6, clean water, 13, climate action, 14, life below water, and 15, life on land, are considered to be directly linked to environmental sustainability. But if you look very closely, every one of these SDGs are in fact linked to environmental sustainability. After you have heard from Astrid's presentation and recalling what happened in Syria, and just several weeks ago in Zhengzhou, China, you can understand that many disasters have origins related to the ongoing and worsening climate crises, which affects the resources we take for granted, our security, order, and even equality, employment, and education. These are also threatened when extreme weather events hit us. Under these 17 goals, each one of the goals have at least 7 quantitative parameters, which allow countries, industries, and organizations to use and to create policies and plans so that we can contribute to an overall sustainable development. When I mentioned the few entities earlier, you may be thinking, oh, even companies create sustainable goals. Ultimately, who do you think is responsible for environmental sustainability? I'm not able to see you from my computer, but I'm hoping that you're actually really thinking about this, okay? I hope that you have put on a thinking face. I like to call this diagram that you see now on the screen the circle of denial, 抵赖的循环. What we sometimes call the finger pointing game as well, pointing our fingers at other people. Governments sometimes say that the businesses should lead the way, while inside the business sector, producers say retailers won't pay them enough to incorporate sustainable production methods. While retailers say that customers are not yet ready, nor will they afford more expensive sustainable products. And NGOs like ourselves say, no, that is not the case. Governments should make policies and regulations that mandate businesses to look after the planet. And so that's also a finger pointing game in many ways, that we're all saying that the other party is responsible. In reality, you and I both know that not one single entity is fully responsible. We all are. It has to start somewhere. And that is also why the organizations that I've worked for, including the WWF Market Transformation Initiative, the Global Dialogue for Seafood Traceability Initiative, the United Nations Environment Program, and also the Plastic Waste Reduction Program at Vera, we have strived to create sustainable business solutions that make sense for businesses. So it's not all doom and gloom. I don't only have bad news, I also have some good news for you. We are still moving, although sometimes we may think that our Asia Pacific region is not moving as fast as the other regions that are transitioning faster towards sustainable businesses. Our region of the Asia Pacific is also highly capable of something called leapfrogging. Just like when you think about a frog leaping forward, our region of the Asia Pacific can be capable of skipping steps and innovating extremely fast. Here in this diagram, you see 4 drivers of sustainable businesses. Each one is related to all others through this clockwork mechanism. When one moves, the others also move. Our consumers in the East and Southeast Asia are not exactly ready to actually demand for a culture shift. In other words, us consumers, you and I included, in the Asia Pacific, do not make decisions or for purchases upon how sustainable a product or a service is. So next time when you go to the store to buy a shampoo or to buy a food product, are you going to say, I compare the 2 products and I will choose the one that is more sustainable? I hope you will say yes. And therefore, the demand for traceable and responsible products continue to grow, but only very slowly. Next, we see regulators in the Asia Pacific. In Australia and New Zealand, regulators are implementing sophisticated regulatory systems. While in the East Asia, where Taiwan is, we can see regulations emerging as well. In Southeast Asia, this is yet to be observed. We're still waiting on Southeast Asia to come up with regulations that actually mandate sustainable businesses. Companies, on the other hand, are seemingly very eager and interested in moving into sustainable businesses. The retail level purchasing policies continue to evolve to meet the trends coming in from the West. We also know that this is also something very trendy. With e-commerce platforms emerging, we know that this type of leapfrogging is highly probable. And at last, the producers that are working hard to produce for our needs and wants are interested to export to other regions, which may already be demanding sustainable products and services, just like in the US or in the European Union, or even in Australia, which is much closer, and the consumers there are already demanding such products and services, and our producers from the region are looking to see how they can enter these markets. But because of the lack of standards in East and Southeast Asia, there's really no agreed definition of what is a sustainable business just yet. Standards need to be in place to guide these producers so they know what to do. So this is a very top-line macroscopic overview of the landscape of the Asia-Pacific region. As I mentioned before, when the Asia-Pacific moves, it is capable of making much quicker speeds than any other region. There is a high potential for all of us to be part of this clockwork and kick off the momentum that moves every single piece of this important combination of drivers of sustainable business. I urge you to take charge of your prestigious status of being able to incentivize, using Jerry's words, as he mentioned just earlier, to incentivize sustainable businesses, products, and services, so that you can also be moving this diagram at full force. I thank you for your kind attention, and I hand the time back to Professor Lin.
Okay, thank you, Maggie, for the excellent speech about what do you call the sustainable business. We end with this slide. So Maggie mentioned very important dimension. What we talk about the climate crisis, the food, and also the water, energy, and also the ocean, and also trying to identify the driver for sustainable business. So it brings us a new dimension that the climate crisis is not just for the energy we usually talk about. You also talk about agriculture And also I was surprised about the food waste will be the third single largest emitter of the greenhouse emissions. So thank you, Maggie, for bringing us this into attention. And we will go back to this momentarily after the Q&A sections. So now we move on to the last speaker is from Vietnam, WWF, is Ms. Pham Nhung. Ms. Pham is now the leader for the climate and energy divisions, and also is involved lots of project about the climate action and also resilient city. And now the WWF now is initiate a project for One Planet City Challenge. So Ms. Huang will talk about this. You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Lin, and also thank you very much for the organizer who invited me as a representative from WWF Vietnam to present today with a very interesting topic of sustainable Earth now or ever. And I would like to focus on the program at the global level and at the country level on One Planet City Challenge. So I'm Nhung. You can call me Nhung, the short. I'm the Climate and Energy Program Coordinator for Vietnam and been working on the climate and energy in the country for years. So I would like to, go very quick on the climate change and its impact, as my colleague speaker today already talked about the climate change and its impact. So you can know that in the Asia, we are the most vulnerable areas impacted by climate change. So we have a very challenge on social economy, also the health issue and the nature and biodiversity impacted by the climate change in the regions. So what is the focus in the countries? You all may know that Vietnam is also one of the most countries vulnerable by climate change. So we do have a scenario by the later 21st centuries. The temperature would increase about from 3.3 to 4 degrees Celsius degree. The rainfall also will increase from 5 to 15% in general. And the average of sea level rise for coastal would from the 17 to 100 centimeter by the end of this century. So the sea level rise will impact seriously on our lands, on our delta. And in Vietnam, we have two biggest delta, it's the Red River Delta and Mekong Delta, where we have about nearly 50% of population living in the area. So the impact of climate change in Vietnam also we serious effect to our system or ecosystem on biodiversity, especially for the mangrove area and also for the agriculture. And why we are talking about the city problem, you also the climate change impacts how can I say caused by from the greenhouse gas emission, and at the city level, at the global level, they account for about only 3% of the land mass, but and also produce about 80% of GDP, and they has about 55% of population living in the city. However, they release about 70% of carbon emission, and they use about 70% of the energy, and also consume about 70% of natural resources. So why we are thinking city is maybe the key solution to reduce the greenhouse gas, also reduce the climate change impacts at the global level. So cities I think can lead the transition towards the low carbon future through the smart urban planning. So it can reduce the urban extension. It can also support the reduce the energy consumption and also increase the energy efficiency and integrate the sustainable energy. And also city can have a better infrastructure. So it can also reduce the emission from the infrastructure. And also it can foster the smarter transport alternative and also support the lifestyle choice and also support to reduce and recycle waste at the city level. So for such reasons, WF have a program called the One Planet City Challenge, which started in by 2010 and initiated by WF Sweden. And now it's a global program with about 700 cities involved in our program. So I think One Planet City Challenge is a very friendly platform to mobilize the city, deliver the Paris Agreement. And it also supports the cities, the participate cities report their emission goal targets on aligned with the Paris Agreement and also assessing their climate work. And the participant cities data they can compare and also assess the emission reduction. And the winning cities they have two strategies in their climate mitigation and adaptation plans. And we work on One Planet City Challenge with different partners at the global level, such as ICLEI, the Global Covenant and Mayor, C40 and CDP. So far, at the global level, the One Planet City Challenge now available for in over 18 countries. And in the Asia regions, we present in India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Japan, Pakistan, Singapore, China, Philippines, Korea, Thailand, and Vietnam. So what we are doing in Vietnam? So Vietnam is also one of the OPCC's participants, and we are also follow the platform of OPCC. So what we are doing now? So the OPCC's we support the cities to do the inventory for greenhouse gas emissions. And after that, we support to develop and submit the carbon climate registries to the competition organizer. And then we do the very, how can I say, the public campaign called the We Love City campaign in the cities. And also together with the We Love City campaign, we do different communication and other awareness raising activity. And in Vietnam, we do have several models on energy and renewable energy and energy efficiencies, such as online building energy management system, and also the rooftop solar system, and also do some public bicycle station or other green city club. So what achievements so far from One Planet cities in the country in Vietnam? So far we do have 2 cities recognized as a national green city with a very detailed and ambitious climate action plan. And we got a lot of attention from the civil government as well as the people on the environment protection and emission reduction have been raised via our We Love City campaigns. And also from our OPCC program, we inspire a lot of cities to participate in the OPCC and also to build the climate action plan and campaign, awareness campaign for other cities. So today I also want to bring the one of I think the solution WRF now very support and want to promote at global level. So you may know that the nature-based solution that defined by IUCN as an action to protect the sustainability and also the restore the nature. And together with that, it can bring it can address the social challenge effectively and adaptively and provide for the human well-being and biodiversity's benefit. So why the WF want to support and also bring the urban and nature-based solution as a key solution at the city level, at the urban level, because the urban NBS can support the city to reduce the greenhouse gas, including the NBS for the urban cooling. And also it can improve the resilience to climate change impacts. It supports reduce the biodiversity loss, also increase food security and their resilience, and also ensure the water security and access for the people in the cities. And also it reduce the effect of disaster in the vulnerable area, urban area, and also improve the human health, equality, and also the social benefit, well-being, including the greenhouse gas. And urban NBS also support the sustainable development in the city and the landscapes. It support WFs and partner at the global level and local scale to promote for the different nature-based solution at the city level. And also it can support other initiatives or other global efforts like biodiversity, nature vision, and also the city with the nature. Urban NBS also mobilize different mayor, city stakeholder, city to and citizen to understand and advocate for the nature conservation, and urban NBS to support in delivering the WF climate change and conservation commitment to ensure the city and their people are in place with our mission on to build the future in which the human and nature can live in harmony. So we do have two case study in the Asia Asia as a case study for urban NBS. The first one is in Singapore. So this is one case we between the 2009 and 2012, the project neutralized a concrete storm drain that ran through the park into 3 kilometers and metering the water with the Maggie Lee bank. And the civic engineering technique are combined with a show bioenergy approach and also the biophilics design principle. Then the projects in Singapore, we bring the home for about more than 100 species of birds so far. And also every year they got about 4 million visitors for on site. So the core benefit here of the urban NPS here is to reduce the disaster risk, also support to reduce the greenhouse gas emission and improve the human health and air quality in the regions, and also provide the water security and access for the people in the area, and also bring other social benefit and well-being for the areas. So other case study I want to share here is in Korea on urban NBS that in Incheon. And also this is a stream have been covered for decades to be used as a road with the highway overpasses. So from 2002 to 2005, the city of Seoul used their own resources to bring the new life to the downtown area by enhancing the urban environment. And the stream's restoration led to the revitalization of Central of Seoul, unleashed the potential for the green public space. And it also bring a lot of benefits like reduction of disaster, improve the human health, air quality, water access, and other social benefits and well-being. And also you can see the achievement by the cooling the temperatures reduced about 3 to 5 Celsius degrees. So by to end of my presentation, I would repeat the sentence of the former Secretary General of UN from 2007 and 2016, Ban Ki-moon. So the battle for the life on the bird will be won or lost in the cities. So thank you very much for your attention, and I go over my presentation here and back to the chair, Professor Lim. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pham Nhung is from Vietnam WWF to bring us the attention and also very important achievement about what you do about the city level nature-based solution. I think nature-based solution is one of the key initiative by UNFCCC about the climate actions. Thank you for bringing this very excellent case, what you have done in Vietnam. Now we move to, thank you for all the excellent speech. And now we move to the Q&A session. We still have some time to about this section. All the participant audience, you can look to the Slido. I think you can probably see all the lot of questions already posted there. So I just go over because some are written in Mandarin, 在中文, some are in English. So I try to translate a few, try to combine. Probably we don't have time to answer, to respond all the questions, but so I try to identify a few for the speaker. So you can pick up some question. And right now, so first I would like to, this is some post X about the role of media. How about their role about now the climate actions, and also evaluate what's the climate performance in Taiwan. So probably some of the speakers, you can try to, about your perspective. And secondly, I think there are some questions direct to Maggie. They are asking about the role, the important role or critical role of the supply chain for Taiwan or, for example, Southeast Asia, for their compliance for global standards. So do you think this is a very important strategy? And also some asking about the vegans, vegetarian, if a vegetarian can play some role for climate actions. So this is so important. And some question direct to Jerry, mostly about renewable energy. So about the challenge or benefit about the renewable energy. And also, well, what's your idea about the ammonia? I think this will play some role in the future renewable development. And also the floating one. There are some people, they are asking, will the CIP developing floating wind in Taiwan or in other parts of the world? And also, I think there's some people ask about the food waste topic in different industry. So probably you can talk more, Maggie. This is very important. So probably people are impressed. So probably I will try to identify some more for Pham, because Pham just finished the presentation. So probably I ask the first three speakers, so you can respond generally about the question. So for the first round, if we have a time, maybe I can just identify a few more to respond. So we start with Astrid.
Okay, thank you, Professor. I will just quickly share from the media perspective. I also, during the previous talk, I had a quick chat with Professor Lin. The thing is, it's quite satisfying to say that we do not lack awareness of all these climate change issues, such as the impacts, extreme weather events, and etc. Like, people are quite aware of all the main problems, not just here in Taiwan, I believe, but also quite high in US, Europe, and in certain countries. But then it kind of has something to do with what Maggie just mentioned, the circle of denial. Like, although the awareness is quite high, we, for people who work in the media, we try to constantly remind people of what's at stake. But then the thing is, while we are all aware of the potential unpleasant consequences, we still do not take many actions, say, to respond to all these problems. Say, when obviously in the market we have more sustainable food, we have like new energy cars, but then, they are more expensive. I don't want to buy it. Now more of my friends in the US, they would buy electric cars because they're quite or relatively cheap in that market, but not the case in Taiwan. So I believe the affordability is something to prevent people from actually taking action after getting awareness. Then that's one thing. And so although we can try to even increase awareness from the media perspective, but then I think every stakeholders involved would have to play a role. Say, for NGOs, they have to campaign even harder to change policies, because if the government doesn't regulate or help more products more affordable, how can we actually see concrete action change towards a more sustainable future? It's just not going to happen because I do this because I feel good. I drive a Tesla because I think I'm helping the environment. That's just not going to happen. So everyone from the government side, also from the consumer side, and also from NGOs, the business sector, we should all take part. I think there's a limit, so much we can do to, say, educate our consumers, but then, well, just that, like everyone at stake here, like we all have to try do our part. That's what I think.
Okay, thank you, Astrid. There's some question come up, and I just directed to the rest of three speakers, Maggie, Ms. Pham, and Jerry. There's one mention there says we are talking some about all this climate action, mostly focused on the big industry. So what would you suggest for the small and medium company? So how they involve these climate actions, because probably they don't have enough source of fund resources. So what's the case in your views? You can, for some suggestion for this small and medium company, they can take action for the rest three speakers. And also there are some asking about some abstract idea. So about the climate emergency, SDG, or the carbon neutrality, circular economy, what's the idea this all come about? How they, this some pop language, pop words, how do we use this word? What's their linkage? So I direct this question to the rest speakers. So from Jerry. Yeah.
Thank you for the question. That I think for the small to medium companies, if they want to jump into this decarbonized kind of world stream, that there are something that you will have to be aware of. Maybe some of you know, but I would like to share with you that there is this global initiative called Renewable Energy 100, RE100, RE100. So this is a global initiative that asks the companies to sign and then to commit that by 2050 that you will have to use 100% of renewable energies. So many multinational companies, including our TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Company, that they all signed up. And TSMC signed up in August 2020. And as you might know, that such a big company like TSMC, they have a lot of suppliers, so from small to medium size, and they have already started to ask their suppliers to change the way they manufacture, to change the way they produce, to change the way they purchase raw materials. So this is kind of the actions that needs a lot of efforts to put in. But if you are a single, small, or to medium size of the company that you want to get involved in this action, and you are not really, have business to do with big companies like TSMC, that I would suggest you that you go to Industrial Development Bureau under our Ministry of Economic Affairs, 经济部工业局, or the Bureau of Energy, also under MOEA, 经济部能源局, to check and ask how you can help to go into this conversion of energy transition period for small to medium business, because there are a lot of things that we are concentrating now for the moment that is focusing more of the big companies, big corporate, big factories, that they consume more of the energies. But there are definitely a lot of things that small to medium companies that you can do in ahead, 超前部署, so that you will not lose out in the competition that we are now in. So that might be my comments and suggestion to the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. So can I ask Maggie to respond a few questions?
Sure.
Thank you.
So Jerry definitely got that field covered because he did mention R100, which is an excellent initiative. There's also another one, the science-based targets, also a WWF joint venture with other organizations. So SBTI actually just launched a streamlined approach for small, medium-sized enterprises. And these, and it's actually a very long process. So I'm not going to lie and paint you a picture. It is a very long road to approach the road of sustainability. It is almost like getting back into health, right? So during our lockdowns, we may not be going to the gym or going to swim as much, and your body may be out of shape. So going back in shape requires a lot of work, and it is hard work. And after you get back in shape, you have to keep doing the workouts in order to stay fit. So this is the entire mentality behind sustainable businesses. But if your friends are doing it and you do it, it's actually easier. So that's also why critical mass really matter. And hopefully the small and medium-sized businesses can actually look into science-based targets to see how this can help them. And on the other hand, I understand that there was a question about in the supply chain that there's quite a lot of compliance to deal with brands. And so some of these brands are using the European Union standards or directives as some of their key drivers. That is indeed true. There's also quite a lot of homegrown initiatives from the Asia Pacific as well, namely for the industries that are most pertinent in the Asia Pacific, such as, for example, the seafood industry that I was talking about. So there are different standards that are coming up, and they are varying in different ways. Some of them are very excellent, meaning that they're very robust and stringent. They are very strict. Some of them not so much. So that's also why for my work, we're trying to create standards so that even for smaller and medium-sized businesses to see how to apply that. And for seafood, able to do that.
Yep. We disconnected.
Oh, yep.
Finish.
I think I got a little bit of a bad connection. I hope you got most of that.
All right. Thank you. Did you finish or?
Yeah, so I was
Okay.
just saying that for some of the seafood initiatives
Right.
and also for plastic production, the standards are there for small and medium-sized enterprises as well. So it does not matter if you are smaller in scale compared with the giants of your industry. There's quite a lot of potential to actually adopt sustainable businesses, not just for greenhouse gas emissions, but also for other sides, such as sustainable sourcing as well.
Okay, thank you, Maggie. Yep. So now we move to the Ms. Pham. Ms. Pham,
Yeah.
can you respond to a few questions we just mentioned?
Yeah, thank you, sir. So I think, yeah, so my, other speaker already mentioned about the different initiative or alliance at the global level on the 100 and also the science-based initiatives. I also want to inform that we do have from WF, we have one also we call the Alliance for Climate Action, also with not only for the corporates to join all the efforts and also promote for the renewable energy and also to align with the Paris Agreement. So Alliance for Climate Action is not only for it's a non-state actors. So we have a different from NGO, from local authority and also private sector to support each other on different initiatives on greenhouse gas reduction. I think for the SNE, it's very important to join this greenhouse gas or also climate change reduction future. I think they are, of course, in the supply chain, as Maggie already said, some big brands, but also they need to do their requirement from the government, the pressure from the government on cutting the greenhouse gas emission during their production. And together with that, if they can reduce the using the fossil fuel and also can reduce the greenhouse gas during promotion, they can improve their reputations and contribute directly to the commitment of the government on greenhouse gas reduction. And I think the key importance that to reduce the greenhouse gas emission also reduce the cost on production. So that's why I think the SNE can play a very key role in the picture of the global transition towards a low carbon future and contribute for the impact of the climate change. So yes, that's some feedback from my side. I think from Vietnam, we do have a lot of members under the Alliance for Climate Action and who commit to reduce the number of the greenhouse gas during their production in the future. So I hope that I think all the green SME can take that seriously on to contribute on the climate change impacts at the global level. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pham from Vietnam. We are running out of time, so we cannot take all the questions. I know some people are asking about the situation in Taiwan. As far as I know, Taiwan's greenhouse emissions accounts for around 0.56% of global emissions. So it's actually less than 1%. And our the peak is around 2007. And now it's down. It's actually decreasing. So even we just accounts for just very small possible work, but we still need to take do our parts. And there's also some question that they read out some of the information about the climate research. I would suggest you talk about. You could look on online, look Google, maybe doing some Google. We have 中央研究院 and 工研院, and also there's 环保署. They have a climate action. They have a portal site. As far I don't recall the name. Maybe climate talks. You can get some information about the climate situation and research in Taiwan. So because we cannot take the question, we have to close now. But I would like to thank you for the speaker from Astrid, Jerry, Maggie, and the Cameroon is from overseas. So we start with the climate risk, and then we provide solution from renewables and also some new energies, and also that reminds us about the food waste, and also the business role and the supply chain. And then we end with some nature-based solution. I think this is close with a very important dialogue for the sustainable Earth. So thank you for all the speakers to present all this excellent idea and highlight the important action we can take right now or never. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for all the participants from online and also speaker right now in live today. Thank you so much.